WP Web Dev tutorials for all user levels. Alright guys, so in this tutorial, it was inspired by my last video that I created, which was just working through how I managed to work out some code for a custom solution I was looking for. And I realized there's actually a scope for a good video on how to do debugging in the front end using WPCodeBox for your PHP and using BugFu. So if we head over to my plugins, and what I've done is installed BugFu Console Debugger. Okay, so from there, if I go to my tools and BugFu, I can see my BugFu is on at the moment, and you can just turn it off there. So when you're going live, turn it off. But for debugging, turn your BugFu on, and then there's some info here on how you use it. Basically, it's a static PHP function. So there's a class, 2 colons, which means it's a static function, and then log. And you can log scalars, objects, arrays, whatever you like. You can also turn off your backtrace here, which I'm not going to do because we don't need it with the way we're running this, because it's an eval through WPCodeBox, so we don't need the backtrace anyway. It doesn't really matter. All right, so that's the BugFu free debugging console, and what that does is in your front end, when you go to your Chrome or whatever browser you're using, when you go into your DevTools and your console, we can see here we've got a BugFu Console Debugger. All right, so let's have a look at using this. Let's go into my code box. I'm going to show you where I've actually used it in a real world scenario. So what I'm doing is I'm in my WPCodeBox. I've created a file here called PHP Debugging, and because I want to make sure that BugFu is enabled and running before I set any of these variables, I'm waiting for the WP hook to run, and then I'm calling my function to set my globals. So I'm setting a global for debug BugFu, and all that's doing is if the class exists of BugFu, then this will be true. So if I disable BugFu, that's no longer true. I've also added 2 globals here for debugging queries and debugging notices. You can add whatever you like in here, and that's just so we can test for those when we're going to output anything to the console. I then just put a line in here which you can copy and paste into any function to access these globals. So let's have a look at my dynamic functions that I've created for this particular scenario. So basically in this get post author URI function, I've copied and pasted my globals into here. So these are my debugging globals. And then what we're doing here is we're looking to see, this is a PHP shortcut, where a long way of doing this would be if debug BugFu equals true, and debug notices equals true, and whatever else we want, then do whatever in here. So actually, let's say it's that there. So we're going to then call that method there. So call that log, that method there to log BugFu. Right, so this is the long-handed way of doing it. This is a short-handed way of doing it. So basically what PHP does is it evaluates from left to right. So if that's false, it doesn't bother to do the next bit after the and. If that's false, it doesn't bother to do the next bit. So if that's true and that's true, then it actually evaluates this side here. So it's just a really easy shortcut way of doing conditional functions or method calls just using the AND operator here. All right, so that's pretty much that. So that's pretty much what I'm doing here. So what I'm doing in this particular function call is that if BugFu is enabled and I'm allowing debug of notices, then I'll log out the query post author. So that'd just be the ID of the author. We might actually put here queried author Okay, and I'll put a colon there and a space. All right, so this will be a message. Let's have a look at that. And we'll go over to, okay, so what I'm going to do is just turn off that query debugging for now. So query debugging is false. And debug notices is true. Okay, so in here I've got a profile field. Actually, that's not going to call that because I haven't called the correct, not on the correct. Okay, so if I go to this page here, it's going to try and find my author's URI, and then it's going to call that function here, get post author URI, queried author is 1. Okay, so if I go back here and I pick my first one, this is for Jimi Hendrix. My queried author website from author ID 2, and my queried author is 2. So all I've done is enable my notices, my global for notices. In my dynamic functions, I've told it that if my BugFu is enabled and my notice is enabled, then log this to the console. So if you want to turn off all of your logging, you don't have to go through and comment out all of these. All you have to do is go to your PHP debugging and make that false. And then you've just turned that off. So if I do Control F5, we've got nothing being logged out to the console. So the beauty of doing this with using BugFu with WPCodeBox when you're debugging PHP is typically what you'd have to do is either go into your WP config and enable the debug mode so that you can echo stuff out to the, or errors or warnings out into the display. In your code, you then have to echo out stuff to the display or save stuff to a file and then go and check the file. This way here, basically all you're doing is saying, I want, in fact, let's just do something here. So let's go for my custom query, my dynamic function. Say all I'm going to do here is when the post author URI is called, I'm going to debug. I'm just going to call if debug BugFu, I should say, and notices. And BugFu Alan was here. Okay, save that. Now just check in my debugging that I've enabled notices, which I haven't, so I've set that to true. Go back to my page, F5, and I've got author ID and Alan was here. Okay, so you can do this from your front end using your console in your dev tools to debug PHP, which is just brilliant because you don't have to worry about echoing out, turning on debugging, echoing out information, checking files on the server, all that sort of stuff. Right, so that's a tip for debugging with WPCodeBox or any other code editor that you use, and using BugFu to do that. So, and this is really useful for things like these dynamic functions. So when you're, I use this for a dynamic tag in bricks because there's no tag in there to get the post author's URI to their archive. So I create a custom method here or custom function here, and I call that from bricks. Now, if I wasn't sure what kind of information that I was going to get from my post or whatever, I can just echo it out to BugFu, and that's so much easier for debugging and working out what you're working with, what your errors are, all that sort of stuff. So right, so hopefully that's something that you will find useful and enjoy, and if you like this, please subscribe and please hit the like button. Thank you.